We've got in studio Carla Tai, the director of the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, I know I asked you this off air, so we can start over. But tell us a little bit for folks who aren't familiar. What exactly do the Children's Advocacy Centers do in Mississippi?
Sure. So we're the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi, which is a membership organization of 14 child advocacy centers across the state, all the way from South Haven down to Waveland. And the child advocacy centers intervene after there's been an allegation of felony-level child abuse.
Okay.
So we're talking about the most severe child abuse, all sexual abuse, trafficking, children who've witnessed a violent crime, very severe physical abuse, are getting referred by law enforcement, Child Protective Services. One of the first steps is typically a forensic interview, and so we want to make sure that someone's asking that child about the account of what may have happened to them in a way that's non-leading, non-suggestive, and will hold up in court later on. So they all have trained forensic interviewers, and then after that forensic interview, we're making sure that children get linked up with the services they may need, whether that be mental health services, forensic medical exams, victim advocacy, court accompaniment, court prep if they have to testify in court later on.
That's extraordinary work. I can't imagine what y'all deal with. So are you appearing in court with the children as part of this, or mostly just making sure they've got the services that they need so that they can? Well,
we have experts that are the forensic interviewers, and so they are often testifying in court about the account of what the child said during the forensic interview. Testifying to that disclosure that may have happened. The therapist may be testifying in court as well as victim advocates, but there's also that piece where we're there to support the child and help them prepare. I mean, this is unusual, as you can imagine, for a child to have to go and testify in court, so we want to make sure that they feel as prepared as they can and as comfortable as can. Many of our child advocacy centers have what would be a court prep or court school where they can go and take the child there beforehand and let them sit in the witness chair, talk on the microphone, experience what that would be like before it's filled with a courtroom full of individuals. But then also there being a kind of a friendly face in the courtroom on that day.
Okay. And do you all operate the various different centers, or are you more of an umbrella for the different centers that are operating in the state?
We're more of an umbrella. We're there as a support. We provide a lot of training and technical assistance. Each of the 14 child advocacy centers are their own 501c3s, their own nonprofits. They have a board of directors, as well as we do. But we do have funding, some state funding that we then pass through, other grant funding that we offer for them, as well as provide a lot of training, technical assistance. We do a lot of the public policy work. If we see initiatives that would impact the child advocacy centers or the system as a whole, then we're responding and working through trying to strengthen the system.
That makes sense. Did y'all have anything you were looking at this legislative session other than presumably getting a budget?
Funding was the big one.
Right.
Absolutely was the big one. There's one big area that we've been working on that is actually was not presented at the legislature, but it is a big initiative that we're working on and just in general public policy change, and that's a statewide protocol for the response to child abuse. We work obviously very closely with law enforcement, Child Protective Services, prosecutors, medical, mental health. And up until this point, we've had each county has their own response, their own protocol, local protocol on how they're going to, all the agencies are going to work together. And from that joint investigation from CPS to law enforcement on the local level all the way through the outcome of the case or the outcome of the investigation. And so we've been working on one unified statewide protocol so that it would take the place of these 82 protocols. And that launched on April 1st. And so we've had this is a result of a 3-year project working with the Prosecutors Association and Child Protective Services, the Attorney General's offices, public safety. I mean, it's been a huge initiative that has launched April 1st, and we hope to have the full rollout by October. And so we're doing a lot of training between now and then to support the local multidisciplinary team, as we call it, in implementing this statewide protocol.
So that's not something that would necessarily require legislation. Just everybody needs to agree that this is the way to handle things.
Right. That's how we've approached it at this point.
In this space, do people generally, and I mean the various professionals who are involved, clearly the perpetrators don't, but do the people who are involved generally get along and have a common idea of the right way to handle everything, or is there a little more getting to these sorts of agreements, does that take a little more work with people who have different viewpoints?
Oh, you obviously have different viewpoints when it comes to cases, and this is something that's a very sensitive issue, and so a lot of emotions can come into play there.
I'm sure.
But obviously, folks get into law enforcement and child protective services because they have a heart for wanting to protect children and want to do right by kids. And so I would say we have some amazing multidisciplinary teams. That doesn't mean they always agree. There's going to be some disagreement on how to handle a case, and that's okay. You work through that conflict, and we're looking for the truth. We're looking for what happened, and the best evidence, as well as making sure that we help children heal and that we get children to the services that they need to overcome this event that may have happened in their life.
On the services side, does the state, and I don't necessarily mean just the literal state of Mississippi, but the various entities that are inside Mississippi, private or otherwise, do we offer enough in terms of, I know in some of these cases that probably nothing is enough, but do we have the sort of services that we would want to have to help children rehabilitate after something like this?
Well, just starting at the Child Advocacy Center level, at this point, we still have 32% of the state that is unserved by Child Advocacy Center. So that's a huge need for us. Access to services is the number one. We are really trying to close that gap. Probably not surprising, our biggest void is in the Mississippi Delta.
Okay.
We have 2 Child Advocacy Centers that we are working with to try and get open and developed in the Mississippi Delta. It's still not going to be enough. We're still going to have some areas that need coverage, but access to services right off the bat, and having that Child Advocacy Center to work with a multidisciplinary team, I would say, would be right first and foremost. And then you go from there, and obviously we need more mental health services that are specifically for children who have experienced a trauma. So just because someone has a background in mental health doesn't mean they've been trained in a trauma approach or an evidence-based model to help a child heal from trauma. So we need more therapists that have this type of training.
Okay. So there's work to be done, it sounds like.
A lot of work to be done.
And in terms of getting coverage to these areas where you don't have it, is that, and maybe the answer is all of the above, but is that more a function of needing trained professionals there, or needing the funding to fund the trained professionals in those areas, or maybe everything? Well,
I think there's a little bit of everything, but it's, one, the funding, and 2, having the right entity that can step in and be the Child Advocacy Center. So having a local community that's either going to step up and say, you know what, we really believe in this, we want to make sure that we have a local Child Advocacy Center, and create a nonprofit or pull together a board to begin that development, or finding an existing nonprofit that is willing to take this on underneath their umbrella. So that's been, having an area like the Mississippi Delta that may have fewer resources, finding that right fit to be able to provide those services. And then from there, making sure that we have trained professionals, we have the funding to support the work that needs to be done.
That makes sense. Look, if you want to be part of the conversation, if you've got questions, hit us up on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. As you look towards the future, what should the state, and this time I do really mean sort of the legislature, the folks in executive leadership in the state, what should we be doing as a state, both to help children and also help prevent abuse whenever it's possible?
So obviously funding is a huge issue, and that goes across the board between the mental health services, child advocacy centers, the forensic medical exams. It costs money to provide healing for children, so that's key. I would say another big piece is the work that we're doing with the colleges and universities. So it's a workforce issue. Going back to your previous question. Across the state, we see such high turnover in child protective services and law enforcement, even prosecutors that are wanting to handle these types of cases because they're tough. I mean, I can't imagine. It's hard to hear about this every day, and so we have students coming out, going into social work, going into criminal justice that are well-meaning, have a big heart, that want to do right by kids, but did not understand the complexities of what it really means to be put in a position to go knock on the door as a child protective service worker and have to investigate a case. So we're working with our colleges and universities to reform the way we prepare our workforce.
That makes sense. Can you stick with us for another segment?
Sure.
Y'all, this is Lucien Smith here in for Richard on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have more after this break. Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. We've got with us in studio Carla Tai, the director of the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi. And if you've got thoughts, comments, questions, send us a text at the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. We were talking about this a little before we ran out of time. Talk a little bit more about what all y'all are doing to prepare people and recruit people to be in this space, because I can't imagine. I mean, you've got to have a special kind of heart, I would think, to want to be in an area where you're going to see this much suffering.
Absolutely. So I was talking a little bit about our program, which we call Child Advocacy Studies. And so we have been working with 28 colleges and universities, community colleges across the state to implement these courses that really help students prepare for the realities of what it's like. Because you don't know what it's like to knock on that door and have an angry parent behind you until you've done it, or you didn't before we implemented this Child Advocacy Studies. And so this is an approach that really encourages that it be that you have professionals training together. So your faith studies leader, criminal justice majors, with nursing students, with your education majors, social workers. So they're learning to communicate on the front end. They're learning each other's roles, because when you go back to one of your earlier questions about do we have conflict, a lot of that conflict arises because professionals don't understand each other's roles. They don't understand the lanes or the limitations they have by their own agencies' policies, by the laws. And so they're learning on the front end how to communicate with each other, what each other's role may be during that investigation, prosecution, treatment. And then there's a lot of experiential learning, simulation learning that happens during these courses. So we have at our office a simulation center, and essentially you can go from crime scene to trial. So now we have students that are going through and walking into a simulated house, knocking on that door, having an actor, having to interview a child about that allegation, interviewing parents, walking through. So they're looking at different evidence that may be there, and then all the way through practicing testifying in court. So simulation learning is not new for, say, law enforcement or even physicians, but it's really not something that entered this space of child welfare, child protection until the last, 15, 20 years. And so we've done a lot of work over this last 10 years with our colleges and universities to implement this program. And we've just been amazed by how much they have embraced this. And so many of them now have either a certificate program or minor.
I would think you've got a fair amount of burnout from professionals in this space too. I mean, I would think this wears on you over time.
Absolutely. I will say that I think the national average is something around 2 to 3 years for a child protection specialist.
Really?
And so
did they get out of the space completely at that point?
They just get out of the space and move on. And that's tough, and they've got to slow that down. And our hope is to help support that through preparing students. And the research shows that when someone has been trained and has this the child advocacy studies, then they remain in their space, in their position longer. Because what happens is, one, they now know what they're getting into. They understand the realities of what this is going to look like. And then they may also find that, wait a minute, I don't quite fit in social work, but I do enjoy this work. I would be better fit in criminal justice or in a child advocacy center. And so they find their right space from the beginning.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, like we said, I'm sure it's got to be a really special type of person, both because of the difficulty of the subject matter, but also, I would assume nobody's getting rich in the Child Protective Services area.
That's right.
So April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. If you're obviously supporting the good work that y'all and others do is one way. I mean, are there signs that people should be looking out for children who are potentially the victims of abuse or subject to trafficking? I mean, what should the listening audience know and be thinking about as a way of being supportive here?
Sure. So we encourage the community to first start by learning signs and symptoms of abuse, looking out for, if your child has had some behavior changes, emotional changes, suddenly they're wetting the bed when they weren't before, that there is having nightmares or fears that weren't there before, avoiding individuals that they may have previously been around, or your children suddenly getting unusual gifts from someone. So really paying attention to when children's behaviors and emotions change. But so from there, besides learning the signs and symptoms, talk to your children. I think that is one thing that often parents shy away from, is having those difficult conversations with their children about abuse, about body parts, the correct names for body parts,
right.
What to do if they feel uncomfortable, if you allow your child to sleep over at someone's house. Do they have the permission to pick up the phone and call you at any point in the night to say, you know what, I want to come home? So giving children that option and letting them know that it's okay to talk to you. We have many of our child advocacy centers have what we call darkness to light training. It is a program for the parents to be able to get some education about signs and symptoms. What do you do? How do you respond if a child does make a disclosure? So we encourage individuals to go through those courses. We offer them at the Child Advocacy Centers of Mississippi. You can find them on our website.
Even if you don't have reasons to suspect. Just to be a more informed parent.
We want everyone to come through prior to ever having, yes, right. If you suspect, but we would rather you come through, any parent come through now. If you're teaching a Sunday school, if you are a teacher's aide, we want you coming through this training so that you understand about abuse, understand the signs of abuse, understand what to do. So individuals can go to our website. It's a free training that we offer virtually, and sometimes virtually, sometimes we do it in-house. It's childadvocacyms.org, and so you can go there and look on our events page and sign up for the courses. And then, of course, if someone suspects abuse, we want them to make that report to Child Protective Services. So that's 1-800-222-8000. That's really critical. Let the professionals that know how to investigate abuse do it.
Okay, that's good advice.
If you suspect it, I think what so often happens is that individuals say, well, I just don't want to get them in trouble. Or something doesn't feel right, but they're hesitant to make a report. Know that they make a report. You have individuals that are trained to go in and ask the right questions, that know how to investigate the abuse. So that takes the burden off of you as the citizen.
And are those anonymous? I mean, if you call, I know the person on the other end of the line will know who you are, but if you did suspect abuse and you called CPS, will they know that you made the call?
You can remain anonymous, and you can also go through their website and make a report that way.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Chad from Hattiesburg is curious about whether y'all have a seat at the table, whether the Child Advocacy Centers have a seat at the table in the work on the Olivia Y litigation.
We are not in that space.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. If folks want to learn more about what y'all do, where would be the best place for them to go?
You can go to our website at childadvocacyms.org.
And that's also the best place to learn about some of these programs that you offer for parents? Absolutely.
You can go to our events page, and you'll find our trainings there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But y'all do get state funding, so you're caught up a little bit in this budget situation.
We are.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that a grant through DHS, or where is that? Or CPS? Or?
Our funds come through right now come through the Department of Health.
Okay.
And so there's state funds that come through there, and many of those have offset the VOCA funds that have been federal cuts that we have seen over the last several years, which is Victims of Crime Act funding. And so the state has, over the years, been able to help absorb some of those larger federal cuts.
Okay. Well, that sounds like there's some more of that that's coming. We've got about a minute left. Any final thoughts or things you'd want to make sure people know about the work you do, or anything during this month, recognizing the dangers of child abuse?
Well, April is National Child Abuse Awareness Month, so we just would encourage everyone to go out, learn the facts. We have magazine articles that are coming out across the state. We have ads. We have billboards. Go out, learn more, help us protect children.
Well, thank you, and thanks for what y'all do. I mean, like we were talking about, it's just an extraordinarily important topic, but one that I think a lot of people who aren't in and around this area aren't. It's not easy to talk about. And I assume if you're interested in supporting the work of either the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi or individual Children's Advocacy Centers, your website will help make it possible to donate.
That's right. We will. We always welcome donations.
I can imagine. Well, thank you for taking the time to be with us, Carla, and thanks for everything y'all do.
Thank you.
Y'all, this has been Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have more coming up right after this break.